Hi, I'm Becky Meagher, and welcome to Transitions, Body, Mind, Spirit. Transitions, we've all had so many transitions in our lives, and I like to use the example of triathlons. Talk about transitions, that's something that I do. And in a triathlon, first you swim, and then you transition to the bicycle, and then you transition again to the run. And it's a real metaphor for life. We have so many different parts of our lives that we start at one thing, go to another, go to another. And we have such an interesting person today. Imagine someone who is a physicist, who is an amazing racer on bicycles, and with all that scientific information, put together a bicycling center in Nashville, Tennessee, that is like no other. And that is our guest today, Todd Nordmeyer. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you for having me, Becky.
I am glad you are here. Yeah. Well, tell us first just a little bit about your center, and then we'll come back to day one, when you grew up and how you ended up getting into bicycling and becoming a professional bike racer.
Okay, well, it all started just with coaching athletes, just coaching cyclists, and I thought it would be a good way just to basically just coach people, have an opportunity to coach people indoors. And so I bought the trainers, bought the equipment just to basically start having people in there so I can actually, control the environment.
Okay, now to somebody who doesn't know,
Sure.
Tell us, you have a space that has trainers, and tell us what a trainer is and
Yes.
what happens.
It just basically, it's a device where you can hook up a bike and you can ride the actual bike indoors.
Okay.
And so I purchased the trainers, 8 trainers, and these trainers are specific in terms of just what's called a dummy trainer, where it's not connected to a computer. Now you have these smart trainers, and the smart trainers are actually connected to a computer, where it allows you to basically create resistance based on a course, based on a road profile. It could be based on a workout, and that's usually how I do it, is I create the workout, which it varies the intensity of the trainer, the resistance of the trainer.
So that is, your center is something that I was there this morning at 5:30 in the morning. I brought my own bicycle, set it up, and then it shows everybody in this room, and we'll have pictures too. Everybody in this room has their own settings depending on their fitness, what they're doing, and then you see a big screen, and we'll have pictures of that too, that shows basically if you're going on mountains, or how do you describe that?
I describe it as basically it's just trying to mimic what a workout would be. And a workout would be not necessarily think about it as a course, where a course, you're thinking about going from point A to point B. It's more about, okay, let's take a section of road, either that road be flat and it's 1 mile long or 2 miles long, or it could be a climb and it's 2 miles long, and just taking that and saying, okay, we're going to hit that section of road. It might take us 5 minutes, it might take us 10 minutes, but let's hit it at a different intensity. And different intensities with your body are going to adapt to that intensity level. So your body, that's how your body gets stronger, because it's not necessarily wanting that intensity, but if you give it to it, it doesn't like it. So because it doesn't like it, then it's going to say, well, I don't want it to experience that again, so I'm going to basically adapt to it, because it doesn't like stress. Your body doesn't, so it adapts to whatever you give stimulus-wise. So that's really what I'm trying to do in the workouts. It just creates stress in a good way.
It's create stress to make you stronger, to make you bike better.
Yeah,
and your
stronger.
Fitness.
Yeah, it basically improve your performance. And performance is measured not necessarily in terms of speed, but also just duration. You can look at performance both in speed and duration. So I might be able to last, instead of 1 hour or 20 miles, I can ride 40 miles and feel like, okay, I did that. Or I could go at this speed versus a slower speed, and feel like I could do that, multiple times. Okay. So that's the idea of the training, is to basically to give you some type of environment where you're challenged, where you couldn't reproduce that that intensity level if you were on your own. Just to give you that environment. I mean, it's not necessarily black magic, where some people might debate that, but it's more. I mean, it's simple training. It's functional training in terms of just what I'm trying to do, but it's just the environment that I give it. I offer it, and also obviously who I am as a person, I can offer that. That makes it very special. I mean, it makes it unique.
So your background is, you have been a professional racer in America and in Italy.
Yes.
And you also have a degree in physics. Okay, so you have that combination of a brilliant mind and the ability to really do the deal and bike. And I'd like you to kind of start from the beginning, where you were born, and how was your biking ability happening as when you were 5 years old, or did you have, I want to be a big biker, or I know foosball was a big thing.
Foosball was in there, yes. So I was born in Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay.
And you know, I as a child, I mean, I definitely rode bikes. Bikes were a big part of my childhood, and to the point of you know, I was a child, obviously, like, you know, anyone, BMX, bicycle motocross, which was the 20-inch, that was big in the 80s, early 80s. So I just took a hold of that and just fell in love with it.
Did you
as
compete?
A child? I did, yeah, I did. My younger brother and I did.
Okay. Starting at what age?
We raced around 10.
10 years old?
Yeah, 10 years old. If you can imagine, of course, I'm 6'3". If you can imagine, 10 year, not that I was 6'3" at 10 years old, but I was tall and lanky for my age, and not very coordinated back then. And you can probably debate that I'm not very coordinated now, but still, nonetheless, I wasn't very, even though that I wanted to ride, and I did enjoy, jumping, going fast down, down whatever descent. I enjoyed that, it just whatever as a kid, I enjoyed that. So that's what I took and just ran with it. But I wasn't very good at it. I mean, I would say that I wasn't very good. I mean, in terms of crashing a lot, there was a lot of crashing. And there was, yeah, I mean, my brother, my brother was definitely much better than I was in terms of skills and just the ability to maneuver a bike. Because in bicycle motocross, you have to, it's not just about physical ability in terms of aerobic output, but it's also just your ability to maneuver a bike and be very skilled at doing that.
So in high school, were you thinking, oh, I want to be a pro biker? When did this start to?
Well, in high school, yeah, in high school I bought a road bike. So I transitioned from a bicycle, a 20-inch kid's bike, or I say a kid's bike, a bicycle motocross bike. Funny story, the bike got stolen. One of my bikes did. The bike at the current time got stolen, and luckily my mom claimed it on her homeowner's insurance policy, and I got the money. Wanted to buy another bike and ordered it, but it never arrived. And this was back in the days, and you cash on deposit. You paid UPS guy the money. It never came, and so I had this money, and of course, this was about the time where I needed a car. So I used that money and bought a car, and then soon after that, long story short, soon after that, I bought a road bike in high school, and just started riding it, and just for the sake of enjoying it, and had a friend at the time in school that also did the same thing, and his older brother raced competitively, so that's sort of how I got involved into the competitive cycling for road biking. And it's funny, we would just ride to see how far we could go. We would sometimes ride around the block to see how fast we can go, and there would be times where he and I would race each other, and I mean, not that that I had this proudness, unbelievable proudness, but it was definitely for him. I mean, I put him in the hurt cave. I put him, yeah. So it's pretty funny because his father would come out and pat him on the back because I was lapping him, but he thought his son was lapping me, and it was the other way around. It was pretty funny.
So you learned in high school, hey, I'm pretty good at this.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah, there's something about cycling that I enjoy. I mean, yeah, and I enjoyed it as a kid.
And then college beckoned, and were you in the back of your mind, well, I'd really like to be a professional cycler?
In college, wasn't for sure what I wanted to do.
Where did you go?
I went to Western Kentucky University in Bowling Green, Kentucky. I knew that the mind bent, as I say, the way my mind was bending in terms of just the scientific, you know, as I went through high school and whatnot, I was always in, you know, just in curiosity about it, you know, the engineering part and the chemistry part, and as one was introduced to physics and in high school as well, so that seemed to just it served well. And trigonometry, I mean, I ate it up. I mean, it was
you
just
liked
like,
it.
yeah,
all that
yeah,
math.
Yeah, all that math, yeah. And it was, you know, trigonometry is and geometry is just very, you know, very just A, B, and C. I mean, it was just very logical. So there's a lot of logic involved in that. So, in physics, at least in the non-theoretical physics, there's a lot of just, you know, practical, just, you know, just very A, B, and C, you know, so you can just think through it. So all that served well. And then, I rode, and there were a group of guys in college that I happened just to come across, and they were the real deal, where I was not. You know, I would just ride along, and they would just basically take me to the woodshed and just beat me up every time I rode with them.
Okay, so they kind of mentored you, but you were trying to keep up with them. Was that it?
Yeah. I would definitely ride with them and try to keep up with them as much as I could. And it's funny because you know, I wouldn't have anything of it. I mean, I would just, you know, they would slow up for me like anyone else would, and I would just ride through them. I just would not even look at them and not even thank them. I mean, I would say, "You're not waiting up for me again," and they would wait up for me again, and I would just go right through them. I mean, I just wouldn't slow up.
Your attitude was...
Yeah, I was very determined.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, somehow or other you blossomed into a pro biker. Now, where does that come in? Or you're older, or it was already finished with college?
Yeah, I'd say it's a little bit. No, I was definitely finished with college.
Okay.
I mean, you know, my cycling tenure, if you examine it, it was probably I blossomed later in my tenure. You know, to that.
Were you 30?
Yeah, I was 30. Yeah, 30
Okay.
in my early 30s was
All right.
if you look at my results and you look at my my numbers. If you look at my output numbers and all that, you would say that I definitely was more on top of things then than I would say in my 20s.
Okay.
And there's no reason for that. I think it's just the way that my body matured.
Okay. And then when did the pros see you and you became a pro in Italy?
Yeah, I did ride
was that first?
Yes, it was first.
Okay. Well, tell us about that.
Well, you know, I did have aspirations to race in Europe, and I had a coach that basically raced in Luxembourg, which is a small little country in between Belgium and France. And I wanted to race in Europe, and I can't tell you the reason why, other than just thought it would be cool.
Right.
And so I did. I mean, I got an opportunity to go to Italy.
Did they pay you? How did you?
They did. I was paid. The funny thing is that when I went over there, I really didn't have any idea of how that I would race. I mean, I had an international cycling license. I thought that's all I needed, and that's not what I needed. I needed an Italian racing license, and to have that, you needed to be on an Italian team. And so I would go to the races to look for a team and for a team to see me. Of course, I couldn't enter the races, so I would basically follow the races. I would follow and use that as my training.
And use it as your,
Yeah,
you
because
were on your bicycle.
I was, yeah.
Following
Yeah,
the
I was following the actual
not
race.
Not really being the
I
racer.
couldn't because I didn't have a license to race, and I wasn't on an Italian team.
Oh wow.
So eventually, they saw this American.
This guy.
They saw this American, and some said no. The guy that said yes, the team Sonago was the team I was on. I think he looked at me like he looked, like me. He just basically looked up and down at me and looked at me like I was a racehorse. And he says, okay. And he says, okay, you come, over the, Monday or whatever the day it was, and we'll get you some gear.
Wow. So what was
So
that
it was sort of blind luck. I mean, knowing that I thought I knew what I was doing, but I really didn't. I mean, I was just not told, and I went alone, and I sort of did it on my own.
You just kind of blindly, but you got the gig. Okay, so you're with the team.
Mm-hmm.
You did they even speak English? I mean, you had a. How did this happen?
Yeah, so yeah, just like they did speak English. I mean, probably more than they let on. Just like if us going to a different country, I mean, you're not going to try to speak their language. You're just going to just keep your mouth shut. And so they probably did know more English, and they were just embarrassed to speak it, like I would be embarrassed to speak a language I know little about. So you just had to just do the best you can, and just be just basically try to be their friend, and not try to be like over thinking I am better than you. It's like I'm in your country, and let me what can I do for you?
So was it a daily? You go out, you train?
It was very much like that. So there would be days where we would train as a team. There would be days where the local professional riders would ride together, just the local guys that lived together and trained together. So we would do that on certain days. And then there were days basically the rest days you would ride by yourself.
And then the races, was this like the Alps, or what kind of terrain was this?
Yeah, so I lived in this little city called Puccia, Italy, and it was in the foothills of the Dolomites. So it's northeast. So if you think about
Dolomites, that's mountains.
Yeah, the mountains. Ooh. So it was in the foothills of the Dolomites. It's very close to the Aviano, which is where U.S. actually has an Air Force base there. So Aviano was very close to that city, and so yeah, we would ride. I mean, sometimes the question of the day was 1 salita or 2 salita, which salita means climb. So we would all choose. I would just shake my head, thinking, all right, 1, 2, yeah, just give it to me and I'll do it. So I would let them decide. Yeah. I mean, it was like, okay, 1, 2. Of course, 2 would. I mean, these are mountains that we would go up, not just little 5-minute climbs. I mean, these are 30 to 40-minute climbs where you're going up. So pretty high up for a long time. And
then tell us about the racing part.
Yeah, so funny, in Italy, at least at the time, this was early, mid-90s, they didn't race as much as I thought they would race. They raced on weekends and occasionally on national holidays. So in other parts of Europe, they have races during the week. And so I was more thinking that bent. We would race Wednesdays, race Saturdays, Sundays, and I would get my feel of racing, but it wasn't like that. So we would train during the week and race on the weekends. Racing, going over there and racing, it was the racing was much more difficult. It was there was a lot more competition, and not necessarily the field sizes weren't as big. I mean, they were just as big as when I raced in Europe, but just the quality of the field was much higher. And I would say that, yeah, they weren't, when there was a hill coming, where my experience at the time was like we would slow down for the hill and then race up the hill. But they weren't like that. They were like, there's a hill coming, we're going to go faster before we go up to the hill. So that was a big surprise. That was, they would just open it wide open, and before they even hit the mountain. So it was that was a big change, big drastic. It was very drastic.
So as a team, did you all win, or would you win as an individual, or how would that work?
Yeah, well, in cycling, that's a great question. So in cycling, you win as an individual, but you race as a team. So you have a, like my role, and I would fully accepted it, was to be a worker, to work for the guys that were deemed, as the winner of the better riders of the team. And like any well-managed cycling team, there should be a pecking order. And so I was, being an American, 2, new to Italian racing, I was on the bottom of the pecking order. I mean, that's just where I was, and I had to earn respect like you would think. So so I was at the bottom. So my job was just that they told me what to do, and I just did the best I could to do it.
So how long did you train with them, and then from that, did you come to America?
Yeah, so it was basically a season that I raced for them,
Okay.
and then I came back and started racing locally.
So tell us, I know you're very humble, but tell us about the races that you have been in that you've won. You've done very well.
Well, one of the biggest races that I felt like I've done really well at was the national championships, which was in Louisville, Kentucky. And so national championships are basically where you race your age group, and it's basically the national championship. So think of it, across the country, and it's a very high competitive race. And there's 3 events. There's the time trial, which is basically where you're against the clock. So a time trial is basically where you're racing from point A to point B, and whoever has the fastest time wins.
Is that what is
that's
that
that's one race.
Okay,
of
is
3.
that like miles?
It is miles, yeah.
How
At the
many
time it was
miles?
40 kilometers for 25 miles.
Okay, got it.
So
Time trial.
I did that race. I got 3rd. I got bronze.
Okay.
And then the road race, the criterium, which is a different type of race. I actually placed 8th, which is pretty respectable.
In nationals,
yeah. And then in the road race, I got 2nd. I got silver.
Wow.
So in that, I got 1st overall category for overall.
Wow.
So because I was just consistent. So I'm pretty proud of that, because that was a major goal for me. That was 2003.
Okay, so you got these awards, you excelled, you had a massive great training in Italy, and then somehow or other, again, your transition, you thought about your own business. Or did you work for somebody else as a trainer, or you just went, I'm going to start a business called Endeavor Performance?
Yeah. So the way it started is in about 1998, I had some athletes that came to me, because I was doing really well at that time in terms of my results, and
they were looking at you.
They were looking at me saying, "Yeah,
be
exactly."
Like you.
That's what it was. I
Right.
mean, and I would do the same. I mean, if I had an opportunity, if I saw someone, as racing the way that I raced and the results that I had, I mean, would want to go to them and saying, "What are you doing?" So they just started asking for advice, and of course, even before all that, I was very inquisitive about just training and this methodology of training and whatnot. So it wasn't just like I was just going into it blind luck. I mean, there was some method to the madness. So that's how it started. That's how my coaching career started. It's just there were a couple of athletes that asked me questions, and then of course that just grew into just my desire to offer an environment where people would, that the athletes that I coached would come in, and I would say, all right, this is what we're going to do today. So it sort of word got out about those sessions, and it sort of just grew into what it is today.
Okay, so basically it was kind of, like you told me before, you kind of made it up out of the air, really, from your experience, your business, Endeavor Performance, which you can go to, and yes, you can train on your own bike, but there's so much more than that, because you will fit people on a bike, right? And we have a picture of a very unusual machine that you said, what is that machine that has all these dials and stuff? It's
called a fit bike. Yeah. So if you don't mind, I can step back. I mean, so the way I look at Endeavor Performance, I mean, if it didn't exist, I don't think people would know any different. And what I mean by that is that I've created this need. I mean, I've sort of upped the bar a little bit, I'd say, because if there was an Endeavor Performance, then people would just get fitted by a bicycle shop, and they would think, well, this is as good as it gets, or this is my training as good as it gets.
But you are an artist in training and also fitting bikes.
Yeah, I'm offering an experience that's very unique, and it's in some ways is unexpected.
And all your scientific background.
Exactly. At least I feel that way. Yeah, I think in some ways it's unexpected. Yeah, I mean, and so again, I feel like if I didn't exist, if there wasn't Endeavor Performance, then someone else would, I mean, they would just do something else. I mean, people would train their own way that they had been doing before.
Well, it's not a spin class.
It's not, but people wouldn't know the difference. So I've created this need. I mean, everything that I do is it's just up the expectation of training, and having a bike fit to you. You know, it's to the minute detail of how to optimize a position, not necessarily to make you faster, but help to make that bike make you faster.
Right, and getting it all precisely done with that scientific mind that you have. We will have a second show, which will go more into the detail of having the different bikes, and more, and we'll have an example of somebody who started, I think, from nothing, and then through diligent training is now doing like half Ironman and stuff, with that systematic, wonderful training, which people don't even know about. So we're going to put your website on our credits, but tell us where they can go to Endeavor Performance.
Yes, endeavorperformance.com, and that's ENDEAVOR performance.com. And you can obviously contact me by email or by phone.
And then your shop is where?
Yes, my studio is in Berry Hill. It's 708 Berry Road. It's actually in PhysioFit's studio.
Right, who we've also had PhysioFit here as Brandy as a guest.
Yes.
And that's where the Melrose post office is.
Yeah, the Goodwill. The Goodwill is.
Goodwill and
right off 8th. Yeah,
off 8th in Nashville, Tennessee. And do you have any just quick thought? Do you want to syndicate yourself?
I guess. I mean no. I mean I think I'm good.
All right. Well, I can testify. I have been going to Endeavor Performance training as an athlete for a number of years, and I did it this morning, and I definitely feel it, and I know it does a really good job. And it's a terrific jewel of a business that is right here in Nashville that I don't think anybody else is really quite duplicating. And I really am proud of the fact that people can understand what you do. And in our second show, it'll even be more prominent on the scientific part and the fact that there's so many different ways of bicycling, and it's not your grandmother's bicycle by any means. It's really so much can be high tech.
That's right.
So I very much appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me, Becky.
Stay tuned for show 2. Thank you. Transitions, Body, Mind, Spirit.